The Buccaneers' two Super Bowl winning teams stacked up against the other 57. That and more on today's episode of Locked On Bucs.
You are Locked On Buccaneers, your daily Tampa Bay Buccaneers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, and welcome into this episode of Locked On Bucs, your daily podcast covering the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to thank you for making Locked On Bucs your first listen or view every day. Don't forget you can subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. And of course, you can follow along on Twitter. I am James Yarcho at JYarcho_Bucs, credentialed member of the media covering your Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Here with you every Monday through Friday, along with the everydayers. And for that, I want to share my appreciation for your continued support of the show. One of the ways you can support the show is become a Locked On Bucs insider. You're going to get news, rumors, updates, general thoughts, one-on-one conversations with me via text message. Go to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnBucs or click the link in the show notes to become an insider today. More updates on Chris Godwin and the two players that ESPN thinks are the best free agent fits for the Bucs. All of that is coming up in a little bit. But let's start with this all-time ranking of Super Bowl winners and where the Bucs stack up. So Aaron Schatz of ESPN compiled a list ranking every Super Bowl winning team from 1 all the way down to 59. And in order to rank them, Schatz compiled their DVOA ratings. Essentially, for those that don't know what DVOA is a system that measures a team's efficiency on every single play by comparing the success of that play to a league average based on the situation as well as the opponent. It's kind of like analytics on steroids. That's really the best way that I can put it. But with that said, there is some really, really strong correlation to DVOA and then actual team success. It's not stats or analytics that are going to tell you why the Titans should have been an 11-win team last year or anything like that. So this isn't really cherry picking. This is apples to apples comparisons is what it boils down to. So Schatz took this DVOA system and he applied it to every single Super Bowl winner to see which one came out on top. However, it's where the Buccaneers teams ended up that I found interesting. So Schatz has the 2020 Buccaneers listed as the 21st best Super Bowl winning team with a DVOA of 32.4%. He said, quote, "The Buccaneers were 4th in total DVOA for 2020, although they would have been number 1 without a single game, a 38-3 stomping at the hands of the Saints in Week 9. Overall, the Bucs were 3rd on offense and 5th on defense. Things didn't look good when the Bucs were 7-5 at their bye week, but they won their final 4 games of the regular season, then another 4 games in the playoffs. First came a wild card victory over Washington, 31-23. Then revenge in New Orleans with a 30-20 score. They beat a Packers team 31-26 in a Brady Rodgers NFC Championship game. And then their biggest playoff win was 31-9 over the Chiefs in Super Bowl 55, end quote. Now, while I think putting this Bucs team on a field with some of the champions listed above it would have resulted in a Bucs win, that's not the point of this exercise. When you take a look at the struggles that this 2020 Bucs team had, falling to 7-5 before rattling off 8 straight wins, there weren't a lot of people that were super confident that they were going to win a Super Bowl back in November. You were going to be kind of hard-pressed to find people that thought they would even make the playoffs when they were sitting at 7-5 in that bye week. So taking into account every single play of every single game from Week 1 through Super Bowl 55, this is a relatively impressive feat. In fact, there are only 4 teams from the 2000s that ranked higher than the 2020 Bucs. The 2019 Chiefs, they were 18, so just a couple spots ahead. The 2013 Seattle Seahawks at 12, the 2004 Patriots at 7, and then this team, the 2002 Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who came in 14th. Their DVOA score was 38.3%, and Schatz said, quote, This team ranked only 22nd in offensive DVOA, but the Bucs had the best pass defense DVOA ever put up in a full non-strike season, and the third best total defense in DVOA history behind the 1991 Eagles and the 1986 Bears. Both sides of the ball worked together well once the Bucs got to the postseason, as they won by an average margin of 23 points per game. The divisional game was a 31-6 beatdown of the 49ers. In the NFC Championship game, they got 27-10 revenge against an Eagles team that had beaten them in Week 7. And in Super Bowl 37, Dwight Smith had 2 pick sixes off Rich Gannon, and Keenan McCardell caught 2 touchdown passes from Brad Johnson as the Buccaneers easily won 48-21. End quote. The best pass defense DVOA ever for a non-strike season. That's insane. Like, we all knew that defense was special and is among the best of all time, but their pass defense that year was truly the best of all time. And again, they're lower than they probably should be because of those offensive struggles early in the year. When it takes into account every snap and every situation, that offense had some pretty bad moments throughout that season. They did enough to get the job done because of the defense, but they weren't world beaters by any means. If they had played the entire season the way they did in the playoffs, I think they would wind up top 10 on this list. The offense was ranked 24th in total offense and 18th in points per game. The defense, number 1 in total defense, number 1 in points allowed. The offense averaged 21 points per game and scored fewer than 20 points 5 times throughout the season. They went 3-2 in those games. However, the defense allowed fewer than 20 points 11 times, and they went 10-1 in those games. And I know what you're saying right now, James, the math isn't mathing here, but that season they did have 2 games where they both scored fewer than 20 and also allowed fewer than 20. That's where the numbers are slightly skewed a little bit, but they went 1-1 in those games where they scored fewer than 20 and allowed fewer than 20. So while I don't think that in reality the 2020 Bucs are outside of the top 20 best Super Bowl teams of all time, I was pleasantly surprised to see the 2002 Bucs in the top 15. It was one of the greatest defenses to ever set foot on the field, and they finished well above the 2000 Baltimore Ravens that everyone still raves about. That Ravens defense, they didn't even finish in the top 25 all time in regular season DVOA. They weren't even as good as the Titans defense that same season in the regular season. It's once you include the postseason that they skyrocket to 5th all time. So the next time someone tries to tell you that the 2000 Ravens defense was better than the 2002 Buccaneers defense, you can laugh in their face for clearly not knowing what they are talking about. Just for giggles, the worst Super Bowl champion, according to this list, was the 1970 Baltimore Colts, which should not surprise anyone. They shouldn't have won Super Bowl V, and still to this day, that is the only Super Bowl where the MVP of the game was awarded to a member of the losing team. The 2009 Saints were 32nd, just 1 spot above those 2000 Baltimore Ravens. And then the number 1 team, the greatest Super Bowl team of all time, is not the 1972 Dolphins. No. It's the 1991 Washington Redskins with a DVOA of 53.9%. They led the NFL in points scored. They were 2nd in points allowed, and they finished 17-2, including the playoffs. I'm not going to lie, this one took me by surprise. Not that the Dolphins weren't on top, but that the 91 Redskins were. What an absolutely incredible team that was. And what a team the Bucs are going to be if they land these 2 free agents, according to one analyst. That is coming up next on today's episode of Locked On Bucs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. This is a message from our sponsor, Inuit TurboTax. Taxes was waiting and wondering and worrying if you were going to get any money back. and then waiting, wondering, and worrying some more. Now, Taxes is matching with a TurboTax expert who can do your taxes as soon as today. An expert who gives your taxes their undivided attention as they work on your return, while you get real-time updates on their progress so you can focus on your day. An expert who will find you every deduction possible and file every form, every investment, everything with 100% accuracy. All so you can get the most money back guaranteed. No waiting, no wondering, no worries. Now this is Taxes. Get an expert now on TurboTax.com. Only available with TurboTax Live full service, real-time updates on iOS mobile app. See guarantee details at TurboTax.com/guarantees. Thank you again for making Locked On Bucs your first listen or view every day. The new Locked On NFL is here, and it's 2 shows every day. You got the Madman Tyler Rowland kicking off your morning. Then stop by the barbershop with Tony Wiggins for some real NFL talk. Add in the Locked On local experts. You get unprecedented NFL insight, hot opinions, detailed breakdowns, all in 30 minutes. It's the new Locked On NFL, and it's twice a day. So make it your second listen at the new Locked On NFL on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Matt Bowen put together his list of the top 50 free agents in their perfect fits for this offseason. He has T. Higgins matching with the Commanders, although that's not going to happen because T. Higgins is going to get the franchise tag. He's got Sam Darnold heading out to Las Vegas to join the Raiders. Josh Sweat sweating in the Arizona desert with the Cardinals, but he pinpointed 2 top 50 free agents that should go to the Bucs. First, wide receiver Chris Godwin's best fit is just staying in Tampa. We're going to talk more about Chris Godwin in a little bit. The other perfect fit is the one that I'm going to focus on here, and Bowen has an interesting one and a name that I hadn't put with the Bucs quite yet, but it does make a lot of sense. I'm not sure it'll fit financially, but it's cornerback Rasul Douglas. Bowen said, quote, "Signing a cornerback should be an offseason priority for a Bucs defense that allowed 243.9 passing yards per game last season, the 29th most in the league. Douglas is a physical corner with the length to reroute underneath in zone and attack the ball from the outside third of the field. As such, Douglas fits well in Todd Bowles' system. Tampa Bay played zone coverage on 71.7% of opponent dropbacks in 2024, end quote. So Douglas, obvious fit for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He was drafted by the Eagles in 2017, spent 2020 with Carolina, 2021 and 2022 in Green Bay, then split in 2023 between Green Bay and Buffalo, then last year in Buffalo. No interceptions last season, but he had 5 in 23, 4 in 22, 5 in 2021. He's got that size that Todd Bowles likes. He's a 6'2" corner, but the big drawback here is that he's 30 years old. So this isn't a long-term guy at the position. For a team looking to get younger and build for the future while also trying to compete for a championship in the next year or two, this is a move you make for that short-term goal, not to build the future. The other issue here is that Douglas is not going to come cheap. He's got an estimated average annual value of just over $11 million per year on SpotTrack, which is basically an even swap for Jamel Dean. That's going to be tough to pull off. Not impossible, but tough. According to PFF, Douglas is coming off his worst season since 2019, and he actually only got a 53.9 grade. However, the 3 years before this past season were some of the best of his career, including 2023, when he got a career high grade of 81. Now, you know me, PFF grades are not the end all be all of an evaluation, but it does give some insight into the drop that he had from 23 to 24. So there is a risk that comes with that. Are you going to tie up over $10, $11 million a year into a guy that had that big of a drop in production? He's coming off of a 3-year, $21 million deal where if that was the deal that the Bucs signed him to, I'm all for it. $7 million a year, $5.3 million guaranteed at signing. Yeah, let's go ahead and do that. That's A-okay. but 11 million a year as the estimated market value, that's a little steep. To me, if you're going to spend that on a corner, you can look to guys like DJ Reed, who is 2 years younger. He might be a little bit more than that 11 million, but if you're going to be spending, over $10 million a year on a corner, you might as well look to a guy who's going to be both a long and a short-term solution. Most of the corners on the market that are going to be in the Bucs price range are going to be around 30 years old. Reed is probably the youngest that they would be able to afford that can step in and be an immediate impact starter. You got Byron Murphy from Minnesota. He's 27. He's going to break the bank. He's talking, we're going to see him get over $20 million a year. That's not going to happen in Tampa. But Charvarius Ward, DJ Reed, Douglas, Tre'Davious White, they're all about 30 years old. Maybe you land Asante Samuel Jr. for around the same price and you bank on the upside and longevity with him only being 25 years old. That's another longer term guy. So I'm just not sure that the Bucs go for Douglas given the age and the cost plus the risk that he doesn't bounce back to the way he, had played the last 3 years coming into last season. Again, I like Douglas, and I think that he's still much better than what he showed in 2024. I love the fit in Tampa, given his ability to excel in zone coverage, with that being Bull's primary scheme. I'm just not sure it's going to happen. Now, to Bowen's credit, when he compiled this list, he said that these are the perfect fits for the players and the team, not necessarily his predictions or his insights as to where they're actually going to end up. As for Godwin, Bowen said, quote, staying in Tampa Bay and continuing to work alongside Mike Evans would be the right move for Godwin. Before suffering a season-ending left ankle injury in Week 7, Godwin's 50 receptions over the first 7 games were the most in the NFL. He's a savvy, proven route runner with the toughness to work in heavy traffic areas of the field for quarterback Baker Mayfield, end quote. He's absolutely not wrong there. Godwin, we could talk all day long about how he could go to Buffalo. He could go to Green Bay. He can go to Denver. He can go to these other places and essentially be a number one. He could go to a place like the Raiders or the Jags and try to help be part of their rebuild process as an anchor, as a captain, as a leader, as a champion. But while the Bucs are not going to tag Chris Godwin to ensure that he's not leaving because of the $40 million it would cost them this year if they don't get a deal worked out, they did take a step towards getting a deal worked out. We are going to talk about that next on today's episode of Locked On Bucs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get in on it than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game, so even if you miss the opening tip-off or want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in the action. If you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. I love using FanDuel's live betting feature because it keeps every moment of the game exciting. Whether I'm backing my team for a late game rally or picking up a player to hit a clutch three, I never feel like I've missed my chance. Plus, the app is super easy to use, and when you win, you get paid instantly. The Boston Celtics are the favorites to win the NBA Finals at plus 190, followed by the Oklahoma City Thunder at plus 200 and the Cleveland Cavaliers at plus 900. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Wrapping things up here on today's episode of Locked On Bucs. And all right, back to Chris Godwin. And this dropped from Greg Allman on Tuesday night, where he tweeted out, quote, Chris Godwin's current contract was due to void, triggering $18 million in dead money against the Bucs 2025 cap. But the two sides agreed to move that void date to the final day of the league year, March 12th, It buys them time to work out a new deal and keep some 2025 cap savings, end quote. This is a step in the right direction. If nothing else, it shows that the two sides are working on something. Now, whether or not that comes to fruition has yet to be seen, but they are working. If Godwin had already decided that he was hitting the market no matter what, he's going to be the top receiver in free agency, he would have absolutely no reason to extend this deadline. I mean, why would he bother extending a deadline that does absolutely nothing for him personally if you're not trying to help the Bucs cap situation with the thought of returning? Chris knows that every dollar is going to count, and he wants them to be able to use that money to upgrade the roster. He knows how close they are to truly competing. He knows they only need a couple of pieces. They're going to need money to do that. If you're leaving to go to another team, then Tampa's cap situation does not affect you at all. You have absolutely no need to extend this deadline. You can just say, yeah, nope, I'm going to hit free agency. You guys figure it out on your end. Not opposed to coming back, but I'm going to test the market, so we're not going to get a deal done before this voids anyway. That said, this particular void extension will allow the Bucs to move over $11 million in dead money to future years and incorporate those savings into Godwin's new deal. That's the key here. If Godwin still ends up leaving, the Bucs are on the hook for $18,852,000 in dead cap this year. That's not what you want. That makes it really, really hard to sign other free agents, to replace Godwin on the roster, to sign your rookie class. The Bucs would have to do some serious restructures, which they're going to do anyway. But you're going to have to do a bunch of them just to clear up that dead money. You still have players to re-sign within your own building. Bredesen, Levante. You need depth pieces. Robert Hainsey's gone, but maybe you're trying to re-sign Kyle Trask. Maybe you're trying to bring back, KJ Britt or JJ Russell or both. With Chris being the top player within your own building that you want to re-sign, but nearly $20 million in dead cap is not a good start to the offseason. It's not something that the Bucs haven't navigated before and that they couldn't do it again, but you like to not force them to worry about it. You would like to not force their hand into, $18,852,000 in dead cap that you then have to navigate. Instead, you want Godwin back along with over $11 million in dead cap deferred down the road. So all of this is good news. It means that the Bucs have until essentially 3:59 p.m. on March 12th to get a deal done before the old contract voids and triggers that dead money. Ideally, you want to get the deal done before 4:00 p.m. on March 10th, when the negotiating window opens up and he could start hearing offers from other teams, which could entice him to then hit the open market and really be able to make some serious money. This is a big step in being able to get Chris Godwin back. And like I told one of the insiders yesterday, I'm becoming less confident as the days pass. I'm still, I'd say 85% sure that Chris Godwin is coming back, but that's a 10% drop from the last time I talked about, or from last week when I was talking about this on the squad here on the Locked On Podcast Network, when I was talking to the Our Lads guys over there on their podcast, and I was saying I was 97, 98% sure that he returns. That's starting to dwindle a little bit. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that the Bengals are tagging T. Higgins. They're talking about now they want to tag T. Higgins to sign him to a long-term extension. They want to sign Jamar Chase to his long-term extension, and they want to sign Trey Hendrickson to a long-term extension of his. So I don't know where the Bengals are getting all of this money. I don't know how they're going to manage to do all of this. I would say it's probably a waste of time and money because I think their championship window has closed. But this does have a ripple effect over to Chris Godwin because, I don't get it. I don't see why T. Higgins was going to be the number one receiver on the market over Godwin to begin with. People want to bring up Chris Godwin's injury history. He doesn't have half the injury history that T. Higgins does. Godwin has had 2 catastrophic injuries that caused him to miss serious time. Higgins has not played a full season since he was a rookie. He is out every single year for multiple games because he can't stay on the field. Why was he going to get over $30 million a year? I don't understand it, but that's neither here nor there. That's something for James Rapien over at Locked On Bengals to figure out. I'm here to talk about the fact that Chris Godwin is probably going to get, if he hits the open market, he's going to get north of 25 a year. Someone is going to give him a 3-year, $75, $80 million deal. Staying with the Bucs, maybe he takes less. This extension gives them more time to get this worked out. It gives them, what is that? 4 weeks? 3 weeks. 3 weeks from today to get this all worked out before the new league year begins, and that contract voids and triggers all the dead money. Chris Godwin could end up testing free agency, and if the Bucs don't sign him until March 13th, they still have all of that dead money that triggers on March 12th. So deadlines breed deals. That's how that goes. And hopefully this is a big step towards making sure Chris Godwin is going to return. But that is going to do it for today. Coming up tomorrow, we are going to have Evan Klosky's top 5 free agents he would like to see the Bucs sign. You will not want to miss that one. In the meantime, please check out everything going on Twitter at Locked On Bucs, at @JYarcho_Bucs. Become a Locked On Bucs insider. Go to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnBucs or click the link in the show notes. And of course, make sure that you are following on YouTube with those notifications turned on, as well as wherever you get your podcasts. Hope you all have an absolutely outstanding day. Stay safe, stay healthy, fire the cannons. I want to thank you so much for joining me right here on Locked On Bucs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.